Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. If you were not here last week, you need to go back because we had Katie and Ani here together, and you guys are shenanigans.
We got deep eventually after the shenanigans.
I feel like it's like, I listened to a little bit of it. It actually doesn't come out till tomorrow.
Yeah.
But by the time you guys listen to this, hopefully you've gone back and listened to that. We try to consistently post a new podcast every Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Every now and again, we got work and shit and stuff doesn't line up. But I feel like we always post a repeat or something. Mm-hmm. So I actually had a girl who interviewed for our apprentice program. She said, I just got to share this with you, but she said in her working or her interview, we make everybody send in a video to like, hey, why should you work for us? And she was like, you know what? At first I was like, oh, it's pretty hair. I love this pretty hair. Aww. And she's like, and then it was like, oh, cool, fancy cars. And then it was like, oh, cool, time with family, lifestyle, all this stuff. She's like, and I realized it was more than just pretty hair. And that's so cool to hear because that's one of the things that we promote. We're like, it's not just about pretty hair. And she's like, the thing that stuck out the most about your brand was you guys are trying to make an impact on our industry. It's not just about pretty hair. It's not just about fancy cars. Like in the end, like you want to level up our industry, and that speaks so highly. She's like, because I'm so tired of the little chop shops, bending over backwards, charging $30, $40 for a color, a cut, whatever it is. And that's okay in our industry. You know what I mean? And she's like, so I love that your message, like, yeah, it's pretty hair and that catches your eye. But when you dig a little deeper, it's so much more than pretty hair. So that was like cool because that to hear. And I think she goes, then I started kind of binge listening to the podcast, which I feel like people kind of go down the rabbit hole. And that's kind of where they really connect with us is through this podcast. So like if you guys are listening and you love this, share it with your friends. Like even if they don't do hair, whatever it is, maybe they're an entrepreneur, whatever it is, if you find value in this podcast, go ahead and share it because we love hearing feedback that it's making an impact. So
Danielle, we're starting with you today.
Oh, fucked up, fired up. Ani,
not business related, only personal.
I feel like I have the same one every week. I'm like, I'm pregnant and I'm still pregnant.
Fucked up, pregnant.
Fired up,
still pregnant.
Still pregnant. No, every day, I don't know.
This question comes every week.
I know, and I swear to God, I still work out with my trainer twice a week, and I feel like I'm like taking this walk of shame in, because it's like, it's cool to be on the other end of when you're training with your trainer, and you're like, look, I'm getting more muscles, I'm getting more lean, I'm getting more fit. I'm literally like every week, I'm like, I'm sorry, it's going downhill. Like, I went to do squats this morning, and I was like, she's like, I'm just going to do 10s. I'm like, 10s, Val? That's insulting. She loads my thing up with 10s. I'm like doing a squat and she's like, go further. And then she's like, never mind. I don't think you can. I'm like, damn it. Like the bars on me. I'm like, my belly's officially in the way. I was like fucked up and fired up about that because that means I'm closer. I'm 22 weeks.
So halfway there?
A little over halfway. It's for pregnancy is 40 weeks, but I have a lot of issues, so they have to, not a lot. I have so many issues, guys. No, my last baby, I had my DVT and I'm on blood thinners, and when you're on blood thinners, they want to induce you so they can time everything correctly. So I'm getting induced, girl. Like, I'm just going to make it through Christmas, and then I won't have to go 40 weeks, thank God.
Our murder mystery dinner Christmas party, which I could not be more excited about. That's all I care about right now.
Fired up.
I'm stoked.
That's my fucked up and fired up. Baby and baby. So
I respect that. Fucked up for me. I was actually doing my meal prepping yesterday because my boyfriend's out of town. So fending for myself right now, guys. Ooh. And I went to grab a can opener in a drawer, and I did not realize that a knife was blade up. And when I went to grab it, it sliced my finger open. So that really hurt. I don't deal with blood well. And I was immediately like, and then I'm like, you have to calm down. If you pass out, there's no one to help you.
You called me. I'm like,
deep breath, calm down. So that fucking sucked. That was not fun.
Do you know one of my biggest fears?
Oh my God, what? Dropping a knife on your toe?
No. Whenever there's something in the garbage disposal, I'm sorry.
Oh,
if you're a hairdresser or not a hairdresser and you're like, there's a spoon in there, I have to think about it for a solid minute. I'm like,
no, I'll grab tongs and I'll because I've seen Final Destination.
Why do I think it's gonna turn on? I know it's a button, but I'm always like,
no,
I was like,
you never know what's gonna happen.
Ruby, can you get that spoon? These hands are valuable.
That's
so fucked up.
Fired up for me is, so I actually went surfing quite a bit last week, and Tuesday, Wednesday, the waves were a little bit bigger and more powerful, and I got my ass beat. Like, I got wrecked. I talked about it on the podcast, like, it beat my ass, but it's so interesting. I had a little bit, not like fear going back out there. It's so funny. My coach had told me, he's like, had you tried to come out alone, I wouldn't have let you because I didn't want you to have one bad experience.
Were you alone when you got pummeled?
No, I was with my coach, thank God. And so he's like, I wouldn't have let you come alone because I didn't want you to like get your ass beat and then you have like a bad thing about it. Yeah. So Saturday, I actually went out by myself, and I could have gone with him, but I was like, okay, I know the way that I'm feeling a certain way, which is a little bit nervous. I kept getting my ass beat. I swallowed a lot of water. I almost threw up. Like, it's okay. But I was like, I feel like I needed to almost like put myself back out there, but also by myself to almost like remind myself of my skill level and remind myself like I know what I'm doing, which I think is so important.
And you don't want to be too reliant on a coach, right?
Yeah. On bigger days, I will never go without him. Yeah. But it was, so that to me had me something that was really happy. I went out Saturday by myself because it's not just like pick a spot, any spot. Like, you have to watch the waves. You have to know when sets are coming in. You have to paddle at the right time. You have to not paddle at the right time. So it was a lot, but I had a really good day. I caught waves and probably a mild case of hypothermia. It was very cold. So cold.
I like that story though, because I think a lot of times we get so self-reliant on like our coach or our mentor or whoever it is, but eventually like you gotta let go of the safety net,
right?
Gotta
spread your wings sometimes.
You gotta.
Yeah, and it's so funny because he tells me all the time, he's like, I want you to go out by yourself and I want you to practice like these things. Even now, he's gonna leave for a week. He's going out of town on like a surf trip, and he told me, he's like, I'm gonna send you some material I want you to read, some videos I want you to watch, and like stuff I want you to get prepped and ready for. And you know, even though I know, obviously I'm talking about my surfing like progress, I think that's really relevant to a lot of our artists as well, because so often I feel like we're almost like waiting for like that easy trick or that thing that's like, do this one thing and everything's easy, but that doesn't exist.
Well, it's interesting too, because I'm going to go back a little ways, but when I first started my brand, like I had always been making decent money behind the chair because I always loved hair extensions. But I was so heavily reliant on my husband and his income. And it was so interesting, like when we kind of like lost everything and he wasn't making any money, I immediately went to panic, like, what are we going to do? And then I was like, okay, calm down, Danielle. Like, actually, what are you making? And I realized, like, even though I was making money in my mind, I was like, oh, he's the provider. He has to make the money. Like, my money's just side money. And when I actually looked at it, I was like, this is pretty decent money for side money. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's important too, and I'll just speak to you women who are inside of relationships, is give yourself permission and freedom to kind of be independent, like honestly. And I think that's kind of, you're in a different situation because I got married so young.
I'm my own sugar daddy.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if I hadn't gotten married so young, eventually I would have taken on that role, right? I'd been like, maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know. But what I'm like speaking to is I find a lot of women, and specifically hairdressers, they don't give them that permission to be like, guess what? You're the provider. Like you make the income, and that's okay. And so I just want to wrap that into this little nugget that we're sharing, that like independent, like being independent and giving yourself permission to make money as a hairdresser is okay.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think giving yourself permission to succeed. I actually had someone ask me, I don't remember who it was, but they were like, what's the point of you surfing? Do you want to go pro? And I was like, no, first off, I'm flattered you think I'm anywhere near that. My answer is no. But it really started with not being afraid of the ocean, and then just wanting to get better and better. And now between the trip to Waco, Texas for the surf ranch there, and then going to Costa Rica, like I feel like I'm adding more things on, and I don't really feel like I have an end game. And I think sometimes that's okay to not say this is where I have to land. But what I've also noticed is a lot of people, whether they're entrepreneurs, especially our artists in the academy, we start and we're like, this is the thing I'm aiming for. That's my goal. That's what I want. And the closer that thing comes, I notice almost like a panic starting to arise. And it's almost like it's panic, it's fear, like it's almost here. What do I do? And then they're like, well, now I have the thing I want. I did the thing. I have a thing.
And then they self-sabotage.
Oh, and then I realized then it's almost like this sounds crazy, they stop thinking. And it's like they don't see that you're now playing at a different level. Like you were here, you were on level 2, you've bumped up to level 3. You have to sometimes let go of the things you were hanging on to at level 2.
I think too, it's an identity thing, right? I think it's scary to leave your own identity, and you have to leave your own identity to really have success in life and business. And so even though we're like, I want to get out of this box, I want to get out of this bubble, like fuck them, like I'm like, it gets to that place like you were talking about where you get so close and you're so close, and then you're like, because all of a sudden you're like, the old me is gonna die. I don't want to be that rich bitch that everybody talks about. And then you're like, wait, I'm rich. I'm not a bitch though. Like, you know what I mean? Like I have success in my life. That doesn't define me as who I am. Like, so you have to let go of like that identity. Yeah. And like literally it sounds crazy, but being like, I can appreciate the path that took me, that led me here. And yes, I'm still that person, but I'm a different monster now, right? And it's like remembering where you came from and allowing yourself permission to succeed and become even more. And that doesn't mean you're a completely different person, but it does require you to let go of the box and the rules that you're abiding by.
Well, and not only that, guys, like I feel like, guys, I see it so much because we have like 400 artists in the academy and they all come to me with a lot of different things, but it's generally like the panic, like help me, dear God, that once they're like reaching for that goal of getting more clients, it's like I said, it's like they're like, I don't know what to do anymore. Yeah. I'm freaking
like
out.
Panic.
Yeah. And it's
success panic.
For real. And I'll say, you can go back to my surfing. My entire thing is like, I want to get bigger waves and more powerful waves and stronger waves.
You know,
like,
that's how you'll get better.
Yeah, and I want that. Well, that's what I got Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, that's what I got. And it did instill a little bit of, like, fear in me of, like, whoo, bitch, you got worked. Like, that was not
But do you feel
fun.
stronger?
Oh, I feel like a
it's
badass.
Scary,
but here's
like...
what's funny. Even though I got my ass handed to me, which happens. Sometimes we color hair in the salon and the formula doesn't come out right. Sometimes the beads are too wrong. Sometimes texture doesn't match with extensions. Sometimes like there's a lot of things that can go sideways. And I feel sometimes when artists hit that block, they're like, no more. It's wrong. I'm great. It's wrong. I'm never going to do it again. It's garbage. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. While instead of me looking at it and being like, oh, this is too hard now, I'm never going to be able to do it. I was like,
what am I thinking? I'm not going to be a pro surfer. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, I was literally like, Ani, you're just going to go out by yourself. And guess what? This morning, I went out with my coach. We were out surfing for an hour. One of the best days I've ever had. I'm standing up faster, easier. I'm turning. And he's to the point where he's like, what's interesting that's happening now, he said, your board is actually what's holding you back. He goes, you are wanting to turn faster. Your
board won't let you.
Yeah, he goes, it literally like, it's not made for this. And so I feel like a lot of our artists kind of have that too, where they're like, I want a higher clientele. I want to be more of like a niche. Like I want this. And then as it comes to them, they're like, I don't have time. I don't have space. Yeah. Panic. And then literally today I did a live with the students and I'm like, let your clients go. And it was like crickets. And I'm like, you heard me.
Isn't that the funniest
let your fucking clients
conversation in the hair industry alive? Fire those clients. Tell how to, you're like, no, call them up. Tell them you're no longer accepting them. Why are you overcomplicating this?
Well, and that's why I'm like, you're reaching for something bigger, but you can't because you're still trying to hold on behind you. And then I even addressed it. I'm like, I know what you're thinking right now. You're sitting there and you're like, but Ani, they're my friends. I've done their hair for so long. I'm like, no, this is a business transaction. And if, hear me out on this, if these clients are actually your friend, then go have lunch with them. Go have dinner with them. Go get a cup of coffee. Girls, go shopping.
Only live in the salon.
Exactly, because they're not your fucking friend. And that's why I even said, like, I'm friends with my surf coach. Like, friends with his wife. Our dogs play together. Like, we're taking all these trips together. Like, we're friends. But also, there's a business transaction that is happening. When I was an hour late to my session, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you about that. I was a fucking hour late to one of my sessions. I paid him for the hour I was late and the hour that I surfed. Because even though he was like, don't worry about it, it's cool. I said, no. This is business, and I fucked up, and I wasted your time, even though really he got to surf for an hour. He was super happy. It doesn't matter. It's a respect thing. So that's why I'm telling the artists, like, if you're sitting there and you're telling yourself, if you're already booked 6 to 8 weeks out, you need to do a price increase and bump off some fucking clients. Like, you really do. That's just what needs to happen.
It's so funny, though. It's something that, like, we'll tell people the simplest thing, and they're like, I can't. And you're like, Okay, tell me why you can't. You're like,
well, because they're my friends. They've been here for so long. I love them. They love me. I'm nervous. I feel bad. I feel like I owe it to them. Here's what you owe them. You owe them a great service and they have to pay you. It's a transaction. It is a business transaction. Once that transaction is complete, no one owes anyone shit.
But I'm telling you, I think it's more than, because like once you're like, okay, well, you've given me now every reason why you can't, and I'm telling you you can. I'm giving you permission. You know you can fire these clients. You know it's a simple conversation. What really is the issue? And literally, I would guarantee you 9 out of 10 times, it's like, number one, nobody's ever given them permission to get out of their fucking stories, right? They're like, no, these are my stories. Because most people you talk to, they're like, oh, that's too bad. Oh, you know what I mean? And so it's like, nobody's ever given you permission, like, challenge you, like, why? Why do you have to work Saturdays? Why do you have to take rude touch-ups? Why do you? Well, I got to pay this and blah, 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 and like it spirals. It's like, okay, well then you're okay with being who you are and being in that box. So stop telling yourself you want more. And when you frame it like that, they're like, oh, how dare you? Of course I want more. Then you're like, then do the shit required to become a different person. Do the shit required to let go of that identity. Like, who are you afraid of becoming? Like, literally.
And you can't put yourself in a place where you literally because there is a little bit of fear when you're setting high goals, because you're like, but I think there's good fear and there's bad. There's the nervousness of like, okay, this is gonna push me. I'm gonna have to change some shit. Okay, but then I feel there's a different type of fear, like the debilitating kind.
Right.
That's when it comes when you're like, oh my God, the thing I wanted, it's in reach, it's so close, it's here. What do I do now? And then it's all of a sudden it's the thing you wanted becomes the thing that you resent, the thing that you're afraid of, and the thing that you're like, you know what? I'm just going to let this go because it's now forcing you to level up. You can't play both fields. Like that's not, you can't go to college and stay in high school. I mean, you can for a little bit, but you won't work for fucking ever. You got to move on eventually. Like that's really how it is. You have to be willing to let go of the thing that may have worked at one point.
Yes.
But it doesn't work for you anymore.
It's like a relationship when you're like, God, why do I feel like I can't, like every time we have a conversation, like we all have this person in our life, like you're like, I can't have a conversation without feeling bugged. Like, you're like, why am I still in this relationship? And then you realize you're like, oh, I feel like I've kind of outgrown this. So I have to have a new expectation of what I want this relationship to be instead of expecting that person to want what I want.
I call it my negotiables and non-negotiables. And I have a sea of dead boyfriends behind me.
But it goes for honestly, you guys, this will help you feel not dead boyfriends, but this will help you have the most peace of mind. And it sounds weird, but expect less out of certain relationships. If you've moved on from clients or friends or boyfriends, like you find this peaceful place of being like, I'm going here and I can respect the role that you played in my life, but that's not where I want to live. That's not where I want to stay. And even with clients, like literally dead boyfriends or clients, you're like, I can respect you. And you know what? I still to this day have friends like that, and I can hang out with them every once in a blue moon. But I'm not like expecting to tell them like my every secrets or I'm not looking, you know what I mean? Like I expect less out of those relationships.
It's more surface level.
And I not even that. I appreciate the role that they played at my life in that time. You maybe with your shitty boyfriends, you were like, okay, well, this is something that's not okay with me. This is a negotiable. This is not. You know what I mean? That's like,
well, and you know what? I'll say this. Even jumping to like the relationship portion of it, now that I look back, I've ended every relationship I've ever been in. Some have been like a back and forth, but when it came
figured out stuff about yourself.
Yeah, when it came to the final cut, literally my entire life, it's always been me. And I'm still grateful for my long list of boyfriends past because you know what? I learned a lot about myself. And those are lessons that I would not have learned. And it's put me in a really good place. I'm 31 and I love where I'm at in life. And it's put me in a place where I'm just so like confident and secure in myself.
Certainty.
Yes. Yeah. My certainty is higher. My confidence, just all of that is really always riding that like all-time high because I'm to the place where I'm like, I've had to make a lot of hard decisions and I've made those decisions.
But you wouldn't be who you were if you didn't make those decisions.
I've made those decisions to benefit myself, be damned what everybody else or anyone else thought. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I did it because I knew it was right for me. So even if you're sitting there and you're the artist who's like, well, what does this have to do with me? Well, think about your clients. Be damned your clients. Think about you. Do you want to keep on Billy Bob and Sally that's a $15 kid's haircut and takes you 45 minutes because they never sit still? Or do you want to create space for a client that's about to pay you $5,000 for hair?
Right.
Everybody knows you want the $5,000 clients, but you feel you owe Billy Bob and Sally and their parents. And then you're like, but what if I let the kids go and then then the mom doesn't want to come? Okay, then who gives a shit? Another person off your book that you have a chance to fill with something you love. And you can appreciate those clients for who they were at the time when you had a business transaction together.
It's so crazy. So Garrett's barber, I can cut Mun's hair. I choose not to. Garrett's barber charges him, I think it's $20 for a haircut. $20. $20. Garrett gives him, I think, $50 every time, and every time he fights him on it, and he's like, "Oh no!" He like feels guilty taking it, and then he feels like he needs to bend over backwards for Garrett and all this stuff, and I'm like, and then at the same time he'll brag about like, "Oh, my books are stacked. Like I am full. Like I'm booked out 2 months in advance, and I'm a barber."
At
and
$20 though,
right? But here's what I'm saying: is people they're like they'd rather see in our industry specifically, they'd rather have like their books be packed. The idea of doubling his prices when Garrett's like, you charge $40. He's like, I'm good. My books are packed for the next 6 weeks. Yeah. That was his response. And so in doubling it, you might lose some of your clients. Artists would rather see full books than gaps and make more money. Seriously, let that sink in for a minute.
It's the same analogy I always use. Do you want 100 pennies or 4 quarters? Either way, you are making the same amount of money. It's the same. So do you want 100 clients or 4, knowing that the money is the exact same? Sorry, I want time off.
Do you know I only take 1 client a week right now? Well, I know you know.
I do.
But I got to this place with my last pregnancy where I was doing 3 a day, which is a full day. Like we know how hard it is to do 3 full color and extension clients. And I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like literally, I was holding on to the identity of I'm the artist and this is what we do. And then I realized I'm like, my time behind the chair is great, but it's not worth my time anymore, right? And I have other businesses going on and things like that. And here's another problem that I'll see in our industry is so we have clients who are like, okay, make a price increase. They do. And they're like, nobody got off my books. And we're like, you didn't make a big enough price increase.
Because you upped it by 5%.
Or
of course no one got off.
They'll have them drop off their books. They'll do something crazy like what I've even done in my career. And I know some of our artists have, where I'm like, double your prices overnight. It's a logical decision. You have to do it. They double their prices. They got a few holes on the books for a bit. They're maybe stagnant for like a month, not even that. All of a sudden, they're like, my books are packed again. I think of Amanda all the time.
Yeah.
And then they're like, shit. And you're like, you're back in the same situation where you're working these 10, 12-hour days. You're putting a cap on on what you can make. And not only that, you're telling yourself that you have so many spaces on your books and you get panicky if you don't, regardless of what the dollar amount is. And so you have it's an identity thing, right? And then they get to this point where they're like, I'm already charging $5,000. I can't charge any more than that. I'm like, who says you can't? Who says you can't, really? Like, they're like, I'm not saying like that's a problem, but I think they get in a panic because their books are full and then they're right back in the exact same situation. You're like, it's called boundaries. It's called boundaries. How many clients do you want to take? How many days a week do you want to do? Only offer those. Set your prices to where it makes sense for you. And that's where you need to start.
But yeah, and I think it just comes down to...
I mean, it sounds so simple when I say it, right? But I get it.
But here's the deal. It is actually simple. But once we take that quote unquote personal aspect and feeling to it, and don't get me wrong, I have clients that I love. I'm fucking obsessed with them. They're amazing. I love them. But I'm also aware it's still a business transaction. It does not matter how friendly we are. It doesn't matter how much our dogs hang out or how much we text. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they are paying how much our dogs hang out or
our dogs text.
We text. Yeah. Sorry, dogs, play dates all the time. But at the end of the day, they are paying me for a service that I am providing. Because even though we're friends, if I start providing a shitty service as a full paying client, they're not going to be fucking happy now.
Right.
So that's the thing we really have to pay attention to, guys. Sometimes you just have to take the personal part out of it and really look at it through a sense of logic. And it's called supply and demand. There's literally a fucking title for it, guys.
A big thing that I see in our industry as well is clients are notorious for doing discounts. Notorious. Like literally they're like, well, you know, what do you do when your like friend or your family member wants to come to you? I'm like, you take them and they abide by the same rules and guidelines and they pay the same price that your other clients pay. And if you can't abide by your own rules, then don't take your fucking family or friends on as clients.
Yeah.
You like literally. And so then they find themselves too where they're like, you know, I forgot to charge for a toner. I forgot to charge for this. And then all of a sudden one day they're like, I'm going to double my books. And they don't have that conversation with their friend or whoever it is. And they're like, this is your price today. And they're like, and the person's like thrown off like, whoa, what happened? Like, when did you raise your price? And then you're like, oh, my price has always been this. I just, you know, I forgot a toner this time and I forgot a bang trim this time. And then all of a sudden you look like the asshole.
Yeah.
Literally. I'm like, you want to complain about this particular client, but you're the one that's always giving them discounts because you're friends. Like, it's crazy.
Dude.
And you just have to remember, like, as an artist, we love the art, but you are running a business and your clients are a transaction. And that sounds cold. I'm not saying you can't have a good experience and be friendly, but you have to be able to differentiate salon experience and running a fucking business.
And not only that, making decisions that are the best for your business, regardless of the feelings surrounding it. And that's what I think is hard because we, as artists, try to put them together. And then I feel like that's, once again, puts us in a place where we can't differentiate feelings. Like once we want the goal and the goal's here, we're like, it's here, but I love them. I can't let them go, which means you're not creating space. I always say, I feel like life is, you
like
can
an
imagine.
Abusive relationship.
Well, I was thinking, I wasn't going to go there.
Well,
I was going to say, like, it almost reminds me of like a Monopoly board or like a game board. Like where the space you're sitting in, there's only room for one. So whether it's your partner or your clientele or your business, whatever it is, if you're moving spaces, that's great. But you can't accept another space of new business, new clientele if you're not willing to let the old one go. There's only one spot. So what do you want that spot to be filled with?
Well, it's crazy too, because just kind of circling back to if you start giving your clients a deal or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you decide you're like, you don't give them a very good like experience either. Like I used to do this. I don't know if you used to do this, but like I would have a friend come in and I'd be like, oh, she's always late. You know,
you're getting 50% off. You're getting 50% of my excitement.
What happens is I would fit them in or whatever, and then literally I would do a half-assed job, and I'd have their color mix. So even my art was bad. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So when I was like, you're in an abusive relationship, like you kind of are. You're not even giving them your full potential of what you could do, and you're not becoming a better artist because you're giving them a half-assed experience because you're like, she's late and she's gonna want a discount or she's gonna want this, and like we run so many stories in our head that dictates like the experience and how the client treats us. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. Like you're in this relationship where you can't even become a better artist because you're already mad at this client and giving him a subpar job. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't care. I used to work in a salon. I know you did too. And there was this, we all, I don't know who you used to call your lady. You're like, I didn't want to be like,
I feel like I don't want to say it because
this lady doesn't listen, but her name is Mel, and Mel used to do my perms when I was little, and it's actually my sister-in-law's sister.
Oh my God.
Like I was 10 years old getting perms. That's how long Mel's been doing hair. And Mel went through a divorce. She had kids and that's great. But I worked at a salon when I was early, like I think I had just had Bailey, and I worked at a salon, and she'd been doing hair for longer than me at that point. She used to do my hair when I was little, right? And I'd see her colors were mixed up. She was just, you know, and she was always bitching. She was always bitching about her clients, like always fucking bitching. She was hard to be around. I was like, she's so, like, if she was in the break room having lunch, I was like, I'm going to eat on the curb. Like, that's how bad it was. Her energy was awful. And to me, I was like, God, I don't want to be that artist.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be that. And she didn't see a way out. She was like, I got 3 kids. Like, my clients are late. I gotta make, and she was just so stuck in her path. And I was like, I don't believe that. Number one, because I was early doing hair and already tripling what she was making. Right. And I was like, okay, like it was just crazy. And so everybody has that person where you're like, I don't want to be like that. And that's really what the Academy and our education and even this podcast is about, is it's like the old way, the old industry, it's great, right? But we're doing things a little bit different. And we have so many bad habits and patterns in our industry that still go on to this day. Still go on to this day. We see it. It's not like Ani and I don't have reps. We have taught so many classes together. And we are not like your average education company. The first thing we do when they sit in the classes, we're like, pretty hair is not enough. What is your why? Why are you here? And it kind of like, it gives people the space to really share.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy, some of the things that are still going on. And so that's why, like, we're so passionate about education and sharing more knowledge and value with you guys, even with something as simple as a podcast.
So we are, speaking of podcasts, coming to the end of the podcast. And guys, I really just want to leave you with a thought. Where are you currently holding on to old dreams and goals that you are not allowing yourself the space to open up for your new ones that might even be already knocking at your door?
Right.
Like, what do you need to let go of?
And don't worry about becoming that rich bitch. Like, seriously, like, we laugh, but I think sometimes we think, like, I don't want to become that person. And it's like, so you're going to live in this box and limit what you can do in life with both your art, your relationships, your career, everything. You're going to limit yourself because you have this idea of, like, who you don't want to become. You know what I mean? So I would say flip that script a little bit. Tune out the noise and consider that you're still going to be you. You're just going to be a different version of you. And I want to close with just saying, like, I loved when we did interviews with some of our Academy students that now turn trainers. And the biggest thing I see when I'm talking to them, I'm like, you're a different beast. And I feel that in you and I as well. Like, it's cool to look at somebody's growth and look at them and be like, seriously,
Attaboy.
And it's not like you're changed. You're like, there you are. I see you all of a sudden, right? And it's like people, you're looking at people and you're like, she's in there. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, fucking done. Welcome up here. The air is lighter. It's fun up here. Isn't it fun? You know what I mean? So that's like my favorite thing to experience in students. And that's why one of the reasons, like, I'm so passionate is because I love seeing the growth in my students. I'm going to cry. Jesus. Sorry. I was like, I'm getting a little emotional closing this up, probably because of the pregnancy. But no, I love seeing people figure out their own path to success. And literally it starts with just letting go and being a little bit scared, but pushing through that to find success in your life. So you guys, thank you so much for listening. I'm gonna suck those tears right back in because I got shit to do. But thank you so much for listening. Share it with your friends. And if you are interested in our education, we do have open enrollment for our 1-year Academy program. It's on the business, marketing, and sales, and also natural beaded row hair extensions. You can go to mbr.education for more information on that. And we will see you next week on another podcast.